Well, I mean, we talk about impulse control, and I think that people should understand that impulse control isn't only during training. Training is preparation for what
Right.
we actually do in the field, whether that's hunting, trialing, testing, what have you. Is it's one thing to have impulse control in the kitchen when they want their bowl of food. It's another to have the impulse control while you're at the tailgate, putting our battle rattle on, putting our vest on, and y'all
Yeah.
saw all the junk and headache that I go through messing with, camera and GoPro and all that BS, and then the collar. Like the last thing that I want that's just gonna make the entire experience just pull your hair out, make you anxious, whatever, is a dog bouncing in and around, and then you have shotguns leaning against a truck, they're knocking them over,
Yeah.
and then it's just like, oh, that it's time to go hunt, and you look at the collar, and it's like, oh, she already tore through that entire cut.
Yep.
It's
Right.
you ask for control, and when you have a dog that understands how to control those emotions and that those impulses, what are we talking about when a dog is on point? They want that bird so much, we're asking for impulse control in that moment. Well, I can trust that dog in that moment a lot better, at least in my thought process, because I work impulse control into every other thing. And it's just like those little small details I think goes a long way. And it's not actual, like, I don't consider it training because it's not a training session, but it's just those little nuggets that you build up over time.
Yep.
Yeah. And Nick, is it safe to say that like letting them just almost calm down at the tailgate? They're so amped, they're so excited, they know what's about to happen, and so they get out and they're just shaking with excitement. Is it safe to say that it's beneficial for them to just kind of calm down and say, "Hey, we're not running right now. We're hunting." So, me as the hunter, I'm not going to be running with you. I'm going
Yeah.
to be walking. So I don't want you, you know, 800 yards away from me in the grouse woods. I want you working fairly close. I want you to be able to check in. I want your mind calmed down where the dog is, they're obviously super excited, but they're in a more relaxed, calm state of, we're not getting right out of the box and just hitting the ground running and,
Hmm.
blitzing through the trees. It's okay, we're going to calm down and now we're going to go hunt.
Yeah. I equate it the same thing as us. Like, calm minds make better choices and
Mhm.
better decisions. It's the same thing. I mean, even this right here, we're recording early in the morning because you have a flight to catch. We could have rolled right out of bed and hit record while we're all groggy minded
Yeah.
and just, no, let's take time, have a cup of coffee, collect our thoughts, let's get in a groove and do it. I think it's the same thing for the dogs, to where you get their mind right. And that's why I asked, it's just this, I don't even remember where I picked this up on, but I've been doing it for years, where that's how I start the hunt off every time. Is I'm walking at heel and I whoa and I look them and I ask, are you ready? And it's funny, like Rachel specifically, when I say, are you ready, she'll just kind of do this,
Yeah.
and like she'll kind of like get brace. And what's funny is a lot of people think that's what I'm after. I'm after the exact opposite.
Right.
I want you to stand there, and if I'm saying, "Are you ready?" I don't want you on pins and needles. I don't want you tipping over the edge, because
Hmm.
I've know my dogs that when I release them, they're going to go hunt. I don't need to amp them up. I
Yeah,
don't need to
exactly.
do the coach halftime speech before we start the hunt to amp them up. They're going to go hunt. That's what we build in the off season.
Right.
And so, like, I want that head more than I want that energy. And also, I think there's a maybe a lesser element, but I think it's true, to where, like, same thing as us. If we get too amped up, think back to when we were playing sports and coach gets you fired up. Oh yeah, 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 all that adrenaline. You build it up and you feel great for 5 minutes, but then it just crashes,
Yeah. Then you get
right?
hurt.
You get hurt, and you get tired, and so it's just like, if we don't do it to ourselves, why do we allow our dogs to work themselves up to level 20 when we're really wanting them at like level 7 or 8 and hit that nice pace?
But you need, in my opinion, my humble opinion,
You're sure. Yeah, very humble.
what we're talking about needs to be put into all aspects
Hmm.
of owning a dog, and not just a hunting dog. We're talking specifically, obviously, I brought up hadn't hunted for a while. But
Hmm.
when you're going to go train,
Yeah.
no no bouncing,
Yeah.
no happy
Yep.
feet, stuff like that. Nice and calm. Put them on the top of their kennel. Put them on the tailgate. Put them on the trunk of your car, whatever, so that you can calm them. Nice
Sure.
calm touch.
Yep.
Play with their ears a little bit. Pick their paws up, whatever, And I have the great opportunity, I think, of being an old man and mentoring a young gentleman in his first hunting dog. And it's so cool to see. We talked about that. I showed him, and I give him free range here out at the farm. He's a student and works, and he can only have so much time. But I'll see him pull up in the driveway, and he makes his little 4 month wait. He clips on the collar, and then they walk around. He picks them up and puts them on the trunk of his car,
Hmm.
and he just real slow, and messing around before. And he's always got a plan when he comes out, whether he's going to do work on quartering or whatever. So it's really cool to see, but
Yeah. Calm hands create a
so
calm
it's
mind.
yeah, so it's all aspects.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
dog
That's cool.
starts running around the house,
Well,
being mad, you just stop.
yeah. Put them in the kennel. Put them up. It comes back to balance because there are also times in the training field to where I do need to amp them up.
Hmm.
Like, if you have a
Yeah. Yeah.
dog that's really, take Quinn, for example. I told you, like, the only hiccup that I've come across with her in 2 years now is live birds and crippled birds on
Sure.
retrieving, right? Well, I can go out there, and if I'm flat from the moment I get her out of the kennel and everything, and then I go throw a live bird in front of her or a crippled bird and send her on a retrieve without firing her up or letting her get into drive, that session's going to be a failure. So there are times to where those short little sessions to where like that, where I'm after 2, 3, maybe 4 reps, I do need to amp them
Good
up.
point.
But if the
Good
dog is
point.
always at level 20, the very few times I do need to get them to level 20, that they're not there,
Yeah.
right? And so it comes back to balance, like everything in this world. But that's why, like, I hate going on a hunt that's supposed to be enjoyable, and whether it's your dog or your friend's dogs, I hate going out and you just know the first half an hour to an hour is going to be a soup sandwich.
Yeah.
And birds are busting. Birds, dogs are just, you don't even know where the dog's at. Getting to know your dog, it's amazing to me when you're talking to somebody at the tailgate beforehand. You're kind of like, hey, do you have any rules with your dog? Point only, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has their own rules, but then it's just like, how is your dog going to work? How
Sure.
few people can actually tell you how their dogs are going to work,
Right.
right? When I let Quinn out yesterday, I told you, I was like, I'm going to let her go. And she's going to
Hmm.
bomb down this trail at about 250 yards and come right back and shoot into the cover.
And she
Yep.
only went 175.
And
But you're right.
Yeah.
and that's what it was. And if I'm not prepared for that, and you guys don't know any better, how many times do you see somebody do that, and that dog just bombs down the trail,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden that whistle starts, and
Yeah. Yeah. Crap.
and it's just like every time you start yelling and hacking your dog, and the dog doesn't do any different, you're just watering it down. It means less and less and less to that dog. And it's just like I've just found that, like, even with all that calmness, like, Quinn just needs to get that initial just out of
Yeah.
her. But I feel like
You
eh,
recognize it
I
though.
recognize it, and it's just like it's easier to, it's like a balloon. If you squeeze on a balloon, here, it's going to inflate on the opposite side. And so it comes back down to balance, to where it's just like, okay, you've been trembling on the tailgate all this time. You've done my little whoa send off thing. You still just have to, like, just for 5 seconds, just go yell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she settled back in, and she hunted nicely for all of us,
Yeah.
and she hit the range. And so if you have your dog and you're hunting and you can't describe the range that they typically work at, kind of how they're going to stay to the front, or if they're going to work left to right, or if maybe they're more of a 12 to 6, the yo-yo dogs, that every dog has its quirks. You recognize that in your grifts, to where
Hmm.
you described how they were going to work
Yep.
before we were out there. And so it's like, when I'm out there, I'm like, yeah, it's exactly
Yeah.
exactly how it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think you brought up I'm going to interrupt
yeah.
you. I don't want to gloss over that, because it's not just in the woods, it's in the on the prairies and the mountains. I'm sure you're the same way. Is you need to get to, in my opinion, you need to get to that point where the hunts are quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never pulled my I didn't even put my controller,
Hmm.
for electronic beeper anything in my vest last couple of days.
Right.
I never saw you pull yours out.
Mm.
Everything's on your watch.
I just need the towards. Give me the
Yeah.
arrow.
Yeah.
I think the only whistle I heard was when I needed to figure out where you were, or you whistled back. But there was no yelling. There was no hacking. Nobody even had a controller, I
Yeah.
think, to stimulate their dog, and it was just quiet.
Yeah.
And it. If I was going to say, as a dog owner, doesn't matter where you hunt, that, in my opinion, should be your goal. When you're done, your dog's going to be, if it's got genetics, it's going to hunt. It's going to like birds. Retrieving you're going to have to work at with some breeds more than others. But as far as the hunt itself, if you can go out and have a quiet hunt,
Right.
right, with two guys, one guy, just, two dogs, three dogs, and it's just a quiet hunt.
Yeah.
Man, you nailed it.
Who